What would you do if everything you believed about your family turned out to be a puzzle, one filled with secrets waiting to be unraveled? Patty Duke, once known as America's sweetheart, captivated television audiences with her charm on The Patty Duke Show and won hearts with her Oscar-winning performance. Yet, behind the fame, her personal life was marked by emotional turmoil, unpredictable relationships, and deep internal struggles. She was bold, often erratic, and profoundly complex. At the heart of this whirlwind was a child, born into confusion, raised with love, but forever shadowed by a haunting question. For years, her son, Sean Astin, lived with a mystery surrounding his paternity. Even Patty herself couldn't say with certainty who his biological father was. Was it her youthful Hollywood boyfriend? The husband she barely knew? Or the man who lovingly stepped in and raised Sean as his own? It would take decades, 3 potential fathers, and a revelatory DNA test to finally expose the truth, and the result was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. To grasp why this tale stands as one of Hollywood's most tangled family dramas, you must first understand who Patty Duke truly was. This story doesn't begin with Sean Astin, it begins with a teenage girl who lived her life in the public eye, endured extraordinary highs and lows, and left behind a legacy as breathtaking as it was chaotic. Patty Duke's journey began as a child prodigy who lit up Hollywood like fireworks on the 4th of July. She entered the entertainment world at just 8 years old and, by her early teens, was already recognized as one of America's brightest young stars. Her major breakthrough came in 1962, when she portrayed Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker. At just 16, she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, becoming the youngest ever in that category at the time. While her peers were focused on schoolwork, Patty was delivering Oscar speeches. Her career soared. She became a household name with The Patty Duke Show, in which she played look-alike cousins Patty and Kathy Lane. The series was lighthearted, funny, and a massive success. But away from the cameras, Patty's life was far from the cheerful image she projected. What the public didn't see was a girl suffering in silence. As a child, Patty was under the tight control of her managers. They dictated her life, overworked her, and exploited her emotionally. She later revealed that these managers behaved inappropriately toward her, but during that time, she had no voice, no one to defend her. As she grew older, the trauma manifested. She experienced dramatic mood swings, extreme emotional highs and lows, and behavior that baffled those around her. Only years later was she diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a revelation that would later make her a powerful advocate for mental health. But during the 1960s and 70s, untreated and misunderstood, Patty's mental health deteriorated, and the consequences seeped into every aspect of her life, including her love life. She loved passionately and impulsively. Her relationships were often intense, brief, and chaotic. By her early 20s, she had been through several marriages and affairs, some lasting mere days. Many of these relationships occurred during manic episodes, when she felt energetic, impulsive, and emotionally charged. But as her moods shifted, so did the stability of these romances, leading to heartbreak and confusion. One of these tangled relationships gave rise to the mystery that would dominate her personal narrative. In 1971, Patty gave birth to a baby boy. Normally a moment of joy, the event quickly became a source of scandal in Hollywood. The reason? No one, not even Patty, knew who the father was. At that time, she had been romantically involved with 3 different men. Her recollections were unclear, timelines overlapped, and her emotions were in disarray. Her mental health was still untreated, and she found herself legally married to one man, emotionally attached to another, and physically involved with a third, all around the same period. When her son Sean was born, all 3 men were potential fathers. But the story took a sharp turn when Patty publicly claimed to know who the father was. The media erupted. Tabloids speculated, headlines blared, and the mystery deepened. Yet beneath the surface, this wasn't just salacious gossip. It was a very human story of a woman wrestling with her mental health, memory gaps, and an earnest desire to do right by her child. Patty truly believed she was telling Sean the truth, but as time passed, even he began to question whether her version of the story held up. So, who is Sean Astin? Born on February 25, 1971, he would grow into a celebrated actor, a devoted family man, and the unintentional center of one of Hollywood's most bewildering paternity sagas. You probably first saw Sean Patrick Astin as Mikey in the Goonies. Even then, he stood out with a sincerity and presence rare among child actors. While many of his peers faded from the spotlight, Sean's career unfolded steadily and gracefully. He never crumbled under fame's pressure, which is a rarity in Hollywood. His defining role came as Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Initially, most attention was on stars like Elijah Wood, Viggo Mortensen, and Ian McKellen. But as the films progressed, it was Sean's portrayal of the loyal, brave Sam that quietly stole the spotlight and captured hearts worldwide. Despite the fame, Sean didn't seek attention or indulge in scandals. He remained grounded, something uncommon in show business, especially for the child of a Hollywood icon. In fact, he earned an Academy Award nomination not for acting, but for co-producing and directing Kangaroo Court, a short film nominated for Best Live-Action Short Film in 1995. Many don't even realize he was the creative force behind it. Like clockwork, he reappeared in Stranger Things, and once again, he stole the show. Yet few people knew that while Sean Astin was thriving in Hollywood, his personal life was layered with complications no one could have foreseen. For years, he carried a heavy burden and a persistent question about his identity. Eventually, he chose to confront that mystery head-on and seek the truth about his father. From the very beginning, Sean's life was shrouded in uncertainty. Even his mother, actress Patty Duke, didn't know who his biological father was. But when Sean was born, she had to provide an answer to the world, despite her own uncertainty. Over time, 3 men emerged as potential fathers, each tied to Patty in very different ways, starting with the most unlikely, Michael Tell. Michael Tell, a little-known writer and music promoter, met Patty Duke in 1970. At the time, he was subletting her apartment during a particularly unstable period in her life. The two had a brief fling, neither a relationship nor even a solid friendship. But when Patty discovered she was pregnant, fear of scandal led her to marry Michael in a quick, civil ceremony. It was a panicked move to protect her image, and the marriage lasted just 13 days before Patty had it annulled. She later claimed it had nothing to do with love or commitment and even insisted that they never consummated the marriage. To her, Michael was merely a name on paper, a mistake she quickly tried to erase. Yet, his name would eventually resurface in the most unexpected way. Another possible father was Desi Arnaz Jr., son of TV legends Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Sr. At the time, Desi Jr. was a young actor and musician, considered Hollywood royalty. His brief relationship with Patty raised eyebrows due to their age gap and her emotional vulnerability. Reports even suggested that Lucille Ball strongly disapproved of the affair. Despite this, Patty believed Desi could be the father and told Sean as much for years. The timeline of their relationship aligned, and though Desi never publicly claimed Sean, he didn't deny the rumors either. He remained silent, avoiding the media spotlight, while Sean grew up believing that he might be the son of TV royalty, until he learned otherwise much later in life. The third man in the story, and the one who gave Sean his last name, was actor John Astin, best known as Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. Patty married John in the mid-1970s, and he adopted Sean, raising him as his own. Together, they had another son, Mackenzie Astin, who also became an actor. For many years, their family life seemed loving and stable. John was dependable and kind, and Sean deeply admired him. He believed John was his father in every sense, both emotionally and biologically. But as time passed, doubts began to creep in. Complicating matters further, Patty's story changed over the years. First, she claimed John Astin was the father, then shifted to Desi Arnaz Jr., and at times vaguely suggested someone else altogether. Outsiders may have thought she was being evasive, but those close to her understood the reality. Patty wasn't lying, she was simply confused. Her bipolar disorder affected her memory and perception of events, especially during those traumatic years. Despite loving Sean fiercely, she was unable to give him the definitive answer he so desperately needed. For Sean, this emotional uncertainty was deeply painful. He cherished his mother, respected John Astin, and remained curious about Desi Arnaz Jr. But eventually, the ambiguity became too overwhelming. The tipping point came when a relative of Michael Tell suggested they might be related, adding a new layer of confusion. The whispers grew louder, and Sean finally decided to uncover the truth for himself, by taking a DNA test. This decision wasn't born out of bitterness. Sean sought clarity, closure, and truth, for himself and for the men who had shaped his life in different ways. What followed would change everything. Beginning the DNA process was uncomfortable. Sean had to approach John Astin, Desi Arnaz Jr., and Michael Tell, whom he barely knew. Michael had long been absent, with his short-lived marriage to Patty a distant memory. Still, Sean remained respectful and direct, and fortunately, all 3 men agreed to the test. The wait for the results felt endless, stretching days into what seemed like weeks. Sean was anxious. What if the truth dismantled everything he thought he knew? But despite the nerves, he found a strange sense of calm. He was finally taking steps toward answers that had eluded him his entire life. When the results arrived, the truth was clear: Michael Tell was his biological father. The man Patty had married in a moment of panic, the one she insisted had no real connection to Sean, turned out to be his actual parent. The revelation didn't break Sean, it grounded him. There was no anger or bitterness. Instead, the truth brought a sense of liberation. In an interview with People magazine, Sean put it best: "If you want to know who I am, John Astin is my father, and Michael Tell is my biological father." Perhaps the most remarkable part of the entire journey was that the discovery didn't diminish the love Sean had for John Astin. On the contrary, it only deepened his appreciation for him. Sean came to understand something even more profound: while DNA establishes biological connections, it is love that truly defines family. With that truth finally uncovered, Sean was able to move forward, with peace, clarity, and a complete understanding of who he was, not only as a son but also as a man, a father, and a storyteller in his own right. Still, the DNA revelation ushered in an entirely new chapter, one Sean had never really prepared himself for. Suddenly, he needed to begin forging a relationship with a man who, up until then, had not been a part of his life story. It took courage for Sean to reach out, but he did. According to reports, their meeting was not marked by drama or conflict. Rather, it was respectful and thoughtful, a moment that fostered understanding, connection, and closure. What helped ease the process was Michael's openness. Despite leading a private life, he welcomed Sean into his world with warmth and sincerity. He didn't deny the DNA results or try to sidestep responsibility. Instead, he acknowledged the truth and approached the delicate situation with humility and grace. Michael Tell wasn't a Hollywood star. He had no blockbuster roles or glossy magazine features to his name. He was a music promoter, someone who operated quietly behind the scenes, far removed from the glitz and glamour of Sean's entertainment background. Yet, in getting to know Michael, Sean began to recognize parts of himself that had previously been a mystery. Not once has Sean spoken ill of Michael. In fact, he described the discovery process as one rooted in compassion and peace, rather than bitterness or anger. In one interview, he shared, "I have a good relationship with Mike. That's who I am. I don't fault anybody. I don't fault myself for Desi, who is like my godfather. I have such a powerful love bond with this man. He's a gorgeous human being." Michael also understood his role. He didn't try to rewrite the past or interfere with the bonds Sean had with John Astin or Desi Arnaz Jr. Instead, he stepped into the picture respectfully, as the missing piece, and allowed everything to unfold organically. The effect on Sean was deeply transformative. Discovering the truth about his biological father didn't negate the love he felt for John or alter his connection with his mother, Patty Duke. Rather, it gave him a sense of completeness and a richer understanding of his identity, biologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Sean has openly acknowledged that he has three fathers: his biological dad, and the two men who raised and influenced him throughout his life. He has expressed sincere gratitude toward all of them for shaping the person he is today. His perspective is both inclusive and deeply loving, grounded in honesty. Perhaps this is why he navigated such a public paternity revelation with surprising grace. He refused to be defined by the controversy; instead, he allowed it to inform him. For Patty Duke, however, the revelation about Sean's paternity wasn't just a truth uncovered, it was a confrontation with her own complicated past. This wasn't merely about a DNA test. It was about decades of emotional pain, personal missteps, and the intense scrutiny of being a mother in Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. So how did she react when the truth finally surfaced? Patty had spent much of her life burdened by secrets, some forced upon her, others of her own creation. Later diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she finally gained clarity on the mental health issues that had long troubled her. She candidly admitted that her behavior during the 1960s and 70s was often impulsive and unpredictable. She struggled to trust people, yearned for love, and was surrounded by individuals who didn't have her best interests at heart, people who constantly dictated what she should say and do. When she became pregnant in 1970, her life was in such disarray that even she wasn't sure who the father was. She had been romantically involved with Desi Arnaz Jr., a relationship that sparked scandal not only because of the age difference but also due to his famous lineage. Around the same time, she had a brief, legally recognized marriage to Michael Tell, which she later insisted was never consummated. She had also spent time with John Astin. Given the chaos of that era, Patty knew she couldn't say for certain who the father was. Rather than face public judgment or endure the agony of uncertainty, she chose a version of the truth and stuck with it. For much of Sean's life, that version named John Astin as his father. In many ways, he truly was. But once the DNA results confirmed otherwise, Patty could no longer conceal the reality. The actress's reaction to the DNA test results came as a complete surprise. She firmly stated that her marriage to Michael Tell was never consummated and denied that he was Sean's biological father. In an interview, she expressed deep skepticism, saying, "I don't buy that test. I can support his truth as long as mine, if not supported, is respected. I've told him, I know what I know to be true. When God looks me in the eye and says, 'Anna Marie, you've been mistaken all these years,' then I'll consider it." Even when Sean presented her with conclusive results, she held to her belief, insisting that either John Astin or Desi Arnaz Jr. was his real father. Remarkably, despite the emotional complexity, Sean never turned his back on his mother. He didn't react with anger or blame. Instead, he recognized that she had endured experiences most people couldn't fathom, including struggling for years with an undiagnosed mental health condition. He understood her heart, even when her actions were flawed. Their relationship remained strong, loving, and deeply connected. In fact, after the DNA revelations, their bond became more open and emotionally intimate, particularly after she vowed to stand by him through that new chapter in his life. Later, Sean shared more about their connection. "It wasn't always pretty, and it wasn't always fun, but there was a lot of love," he said. "Even through her divorce, her suicide attempts, and everything terrible that happened, I never once doubted that she loved me. We were all in it together. We weathered the storm as a family." After Patty Duke passed away from sepsis in 2016, Sean honored her memory by launching the Patty Duke Mental Health Initiative, a foundation dedicated to mental health advocacy. Reflecting on her life, he said, "Above all, the way I think of my mother, the thing that fills me with such joy and reverence, is that she was, above everything else, a warrior." This tribute speaks volumes about the love he felt for her. Even in the wake of discovering the truth about his biological father, Sean has shown deep emotional insight. Many have wondered how he coped with the revelation that the man he believed was his father wasn't, and that there were 3 possible candidates. While this might sound like something out of a soap opera, for Sean, it was his lived experience. Rather than being overwhelmed by it, he embraced it with grace. Sean has spoken openly about his views on fatherhood. While he acknowledges that biology matters and truth is important, he believes fatherhood is defined just as much by love, care, and presence. He hasn't chosen one man over the others. Instead, he honors each relationship for what it brought to his life. Though John Astin wasn't his biological father, he was the one who raised him, reading him bedtime stories, helping with homework, setting boundaries, and modeling how to be a good man. John was there for the birthdays, school events, and tough teenage years. To Sean, John is and always will be Dad. As he put it, "I want to honor the people who took care of me, especially John, who gave me so much of his time, energy, and love." Sean's connection with Desi Arnaz Jr. was never close. They didn't share a strong father-son relationship, and eventually, Desi faded into the background of the story. Still, Sean has never spoken ill of him. He recognizes that Desi, in the 1970s, was just a young man swept up in Hollywood chaos. Rather than holding resentment, Sean sees that time as a chapter in his story, one that, while confusing, ultimately led him to the truth. Learning that Michael Tell was his biological father was a life-changing moment, but it didn't shake the foundation of who he was. Sean approached it with the same openness and maturity that defines much of his life. His relationship with Michael isn't dramatic or highly visible, but it's based on mutual respect and quiet understanding. Sean has found peace with Michael's place in his life. Ultimately, Sean Astin's story is about more than just finding out who his biological father is. It's about how we define family, not through DNA alone, but through love, presence, and emotional truth. He was raised in love, sought the truth, and once he found it, he didn't discard his past. He used the truth to complete his story. His journey reminds us that family is rarely simple. It's about relationships, choices, and the courage to embrace every messy, beautiful piece of your life. So, what do you think? Did Sean make the right decision in taking the DNA test? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories.